Welcome to the Din Sara's podcast. Today, I have the honor to meet one of my latest favorite heroes in training. He's one of a kind, and he's David Weck. So welcome, David.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be speaking with you today.
Well, it's my pleasure, to be honest. You have done many things. Before we start the chat, I want to acknowledge your work because I think that's something that it's lacking from many people, acknowledging the good work of the masters in the field. And I consider you, my opinion, I consider you one of the masters. You are an inventor, you are a free mind. You seem to really improve things in fitness. From what I've done, I've tried your methods, some of them, and everything that I've tried really changed my whole understanding of my body, my physique. So I have huge gratitude for you, David. So that's my thanks for you. So I want you first to elaborate on what you do, just for the people that don't know you. What are you doing now? What are you doing, for the past 10 years and stuff? And then we can dive into more detailed things.
Okay. Well, I guess you could say I'm a biomechanist in the sense that I'm always looking to enhance my capacity to move and then pass along that information to others. In 1999, I invented the BOSU balance trainer, and the success of that product gave me a very unique opportunity to basically work full time at this study and this pursuit of what I'll call balance training. And balance much more than not fall down, but balance defined as the bottom line balance is measured by locomotion. So we have an objective measure of a universal function that we can assess whether or not we are making progress with absolutely no question. If you can get there faster from A to B to C to D to wherever, well, now we have an objective measure of efficacy. And commensurate to the flight function, the locomotive function, is the fight function. So it's even more important than being able to get there is, can you defend it when you get there, right?
Sure.
If you go back down to the root of things, and the two sides of this coin of fight, flight, responsibility is what I've used to sort of tic-tac my way toward truth. The measures and the activities, the training, actual practice based in principles have to yield this truth in locomotion, and many of the principles are based in martial science. So, and what I would say is, I would say that the Rosetta Stone, perhaps the most valuable modality in this existence for a human being to get familiar with in terms of muscle memory, the ability to move subcortically, is a simple length of rope where you connect the hands and you, for a time, study all there is to study and practice without jumping through the rope, so that it forces you to go right, it forces you to go left. You get a unified downbeat with everything, the hands in the body, through this fluid spiraling. The rope doesn't lie. It's the feedback that tells you whether or not you have the integration and timing. If the rope is true, so are you. And it will give you a body map of this complex three-dimensional matrix, both inside your body and outside, the way that we train it, using the cardinal directions to orient ourselves, so that we have precise angles that we understand. If you can understand north, south, east, and west, well, that takes care of 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees. And then if we can split that, now we into the intercardinals, now we have the 45-degree angles. And when your body understands the relationship to this map of the cardinal, intercardinal directions, and you have the internal knowledge to never, ever break the flow and the integration, you have now the Rosetta Stone of exercise that allows you to translate whatever comes next faster and more thoroughly. So faster and greater competence in your acquisition of the next skill. So that's a long answer, but I'm just an explorer, and I subscribe to this relentless pursuit of better, because when you arrive at what is best, well, what comes after best is better. So it's the relentless pursuit of better. And me personally, I love the study, because the fringe benefit is I get to be more athletic. And as my physical prowess wanes, as I'm growing older, well, my technique and my ability to orchestrate really harmonic movement goes up. So I'm able to do more with less and keep a functional capacity very, very high. At 51 years old, I can, burst into a sprint, and I can, I can keep up with people who are younger and quote unquote bigger, faster, stronger
I've
through
seen
technique.
that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I've seen you sprinting. It's like, 51. What the heck?
Yeah, and sprinting is just a very high expression of locomotive function. So, if you can take the best sprinters and make them measurably faster, well, now you understand a baseline truth that if we do these things, then you can expect to get better.
It sounds to me that basically you focus on the fundamentals. So what you do is you improve the fundamental work that needs to be done to the body. What I understand from my experience, because I've used your ropes, I've even used your head over toe technique.
Head over foot. Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, head over foot. I've done it myself. So even with that slight change, I saw improvement. Basically, my running, I hate running. So
yeah, right. Most people do. Most people
do. Most people do. Yeah, I'm a hater, but I tried your method slowly. I did the rope, and after that, running seemed more fun, to be honest.
Yes. Well, I think whether you want, because I don't really go for runs specifically either. I train based in the principles that I am enhancing my capacity to locomote. But I don't really go out for a 3 or 5 mile jog or whatever. Like, it's just not what I enjoy. But if I were to go out on that 3 or 5 mile jog, the proficiency and the speed and the economy with which I will do it, which is commensurate with the enjoyment of it, would be very high. And I have tested it, and okay, yes, in fact, I can do it very well. And the thing that I have also focused on tremendously is using the mind-body connection of the hands within the brain, the sensory motor cortices. There's no other parts on your body, aside from the things on your face, that have the motor capacity of your hands. So the hands, what can't they learn to do is the better question. And the describing the movement arcs and the capacity of the distal extremities will define the proximal connection. And you can work from the inside out, where it's the core strength, where it's coiling core, head over foot, but you can also work from the outside in by arranging the skeleton in the distal extremities to do different postures that lead to the greatest fascial integration from the fingers through the body to the feet. And if you do not optimize the hands, well, then you're leaving something on the table. So unless you fully integrate, what's that?
Sorry, can I ask you something about this? So before you elaborate.
Absolutely. Sure thing.
So that I can understand the basics. So what you are saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you are saying is that our fascia and of course our nerves probably and our hands are connected intimately, directly with our feet. Is that what are you saying?
Well, what I'm saying is yes, but throughout the body to eventually get to the feet.
Okay.
So the hands, neurologically, there's nothing more connected than your hands. And structurally, it represents 25% of the skeleton, your wrist and hands. So what are we doing with this bony architecture to funnel the force back into the body so that we can harness it and not bleed or leak power that we can otherwise, an efficiency that we can otherwise capture, harness, and use for maximizing the global capacity to move. And without the hands, again, okay, no strategy is a strategy, and you may get a lot of it optimized, but are you getting all of it optimized? And are you perhaps making quote unquote mistakes that could otherwise give you, literally, the 10 fingers to step up to a higher level? And this is something that I've been focused on intensely for a long time, the ambidexterity of the crossing the midline and understanding the spiral dynamic, but then understanding the skeletal architecture based in martial science, where it's the triangle shape that allows me to put full force through the skeleton and get return and freedom, rather than full force through the skeleton that leads to restriction and being bound up. So it's fundamental that if we fold the fingers flat at the PIP joint, the proximal interphalangeal joint, that, just the second digit, if we're folding flat, we create this architecture where we have triangles at the distal extremities. And so the triangulation of this force allows us to now use them with a greater return, as opposed to if we just do the natural grasping reflex, which really only works best when there is something to grasp. Empty-handed, this is a zero-sum game that you ultimately will lose, because you can't load it without damage. And here, if we're doing this and we're doing this, well, now we have a structure that we can go full force and get a clean return to put a better tensegrity or internal balance throughout the body that routes through the triangular structures. If you look at the scaps, they're triangular. Look at the lat or the traps. It's a diamond. The lats, a triangle. The lumbodorsal fascia, diamond. The serratus, where you have like these structures, and it all sort of triangulates and connects through the fascia being the ubiquitous tissue that separates and surrounds everything. And you can think of fascia as 4 layers. So you have fascia that's under the skin, fascia that envelops the tendons and the muscles, then fascia that distinguishes the muscle bundles within the muscles, and then fascia that encases every single individual cell. So it's this fascia that is the ubiquitous tissue. It's everywhere. And it's a very interesting body structure because it has a gelatinous fluid component that will instantly spring into a tensional matrix that is constantly shifting the triangles with faster than reflex speed. So the signal of a tensional balance will spring it into a structure that harmonizes the force and distributes it without even having to route the signal to the spine and back. So it's just mechanical, where it's instantaneous reaction that is, but it's the most profound and immediate connection we have with our environment. And in terms of proprioception, the nerve awareness, that's all embedded within the fascia, much more so than the muscles themselves. So this ability to understand where you are in space and the tensional balance and the slight adjustments that maintain and optimize balance, that's all found within the fascia. And in order to optimize the fascia, we have to organize and optimize the architecture, which is the skeleton. And if we fail to organize the skeleton, well, then we have no hope at fully integrating the fascia. So the skeleton is our priority. The skeleton is the inner architecture. Without the skeleton, we're just a blob that can barely move. So it is the skeleton that is the priority. And with the hands, we have a unique opportunity to arrange the skeleton that will help the rest of the skeleton, that helps with that and gives us the potential to fully actualize fascial integration.
Wow, I'm trying to keep track with what you said. So you referenced a few things. First of all, I want you to elaborate more on the martial thing that you said, and then you say a lot about architecture and triangles. So you refer about geometry, and I'm looking more on geometry of the universe right now, on geometry of the nature and stuff, and I'm fascinated. So, can you
Yeah.
please get a little bit deeper? First of all, why did you say about martial, and what do you know about martial theories and stuff? And then,
Yep.
how important is geometry, and what is the role of geometry to maximize our strength, maximize our power, if it's balanced, if it's right properly?
Yeah. Okay. So first, before I get into that, you mentioned, universal design that you're curious about. So we have the Fibonacci sequence that is sort of the nature's divine proportion. And so the body, we can identify this proportion within the body the same way we can, identify it in sunflower seeds, the arrangement of them, or, the development of different things. Even the universe and the galaxy, follows this divine proportion. So there's this universal connection in structure function, and it's proportional. Okay. So given that fact, we now can derive martial science principles, and understanding the center line and the relationship to the center line, where we can be across the center without being flanked. So we want an over-under coverage and a side-to-side coverage that gives us both options without delay. So if I'm committed to one side and I've left the other side vulnerable, well, then that's the side that, is exploited. Whereas if I can have both, now it gives me options to be reactive in an appropriate sense. Now, with gravity and the ground, it's the orientation to the pure vertical, right? The direction of the force that is accelerating your mass at a 9.8 meters per second pure vertical is the reactivity and the excitation of your body based in that where and when, because it's oriented straight up and down, and it's got a speed. There's an acceleration coefficient. So we're dealing with both where and when, the fundamental locator for everything that we can experience. And what we want to be capable of doing is optimizing the coil and springiness of one side while optimizing the length and integration of the other side, so that they can both contribute to change your weight, and change your weight with the maximum change in polarity as one end of the spectrum. And as the other end of the spectrum, we want to be able to change your weight without changing the upper arrangement. And from a martial science principle, again, having the option to go either way based on what's coming. So it's a reaction that can be immediately appropriate, that does not leave you vulnerable. And the ability to arrange the upper body such that you can change the weight of your feet to either one without changing the upper body is a key capacity. If you have both sides, the maximum polarity of this optimized coil spring that comes out, and it's basically based in Grakovetsky's spinal engine, where you're creating this shoulder down and back, hip up and forward, and commensurate with the other side being optimized, you can spring out of it. And the length of the other side based in brachiation, where we used to once hang from the tree, talk about fullest fascial integration. If you're using your muscles to do it, they will wear out. You need to have no slack in the system to brachiate. And to hang in the coil gives you the ability to now, again, no slack, boom, change. And that is those two things are the fundamentals. Now, in terms of martial science, you have certain principles called face the force. And your body's reflexes, the protective survival fight reflex, is your very first response to threat. So if I'm here and something happens, a loud noise or an attack, what I will do is my body will reflexively, I don't have to think about it, this is what it will actually do, is if I'm here, I'm going to boom, turn, face the force, both hands will come up to the center and they will splay in an extension. So this is boom, that's your very first reaction. You know, the spider lands here, boom, okay, what is that? And then after that comes the flexion or the recoil of, oh, it's a bear, I have no chance. Like, right? So, or, you know, oh, it's something that I can now, you know, defeat, or it's something that I can now get away from and run away from. So these are, you have to be dealing with the body at the reflexive level as the foundation, because that's what your body's going to do no matter what you think or want or desire. We have to go on the physiology first and foremost. And so by understanding these things, now you can inform the practices with these fundamental principles that never change. So they will support any and all human endeavors, because there is nothing beneath the physiology of what you will actually do in this space-time where we map it from where and when. I know I'm speaking a little complex, but
it's like you're speaking Greek.
Right, right.
You know the phrase, but no, really, it's fascinating. Honestly, I find all these theories and all these basically understandings, because they are not theories per se. I think they are more like standards, truisms. Yes, because from my experience, what I'm understanding about the body is that it's, first of all, it's a structure. And I happen to be basically a civil engineering student.
Okay.
And thus, that's where basically everything came to practice. Everything basically, it was like a light bulb. So we did foundations of buildings. I didn't finish the school because I didn't like, the mathematics of it. So it was a little bit too deep for me. I liked the architecture more, the beauty and stuff. But I learned a lot of things on how critical is the foundations, on how you can maximize power to minimize the building cost and to minimize the structure that you need, the ingredients. It was basically chemistry plus smart structuring of an understanding of the space and how you build. It was fascinating, honestly. And it reminds me really what you're saying. It's weird. So you could be easily a professor in a civil engineering student, honestly.
Well, what I would say is that the counterbalance to all of this discussion is that this information has been concentrated, distilled, and simplified into very, basic practices. So you could teach it to someone who was deaf and couldn't hear you or understand anything about this from transmitting sort of the foundational information. You can go right to, here's what you actually do. Okay, you learn these patterns with the rope. Okay, now you're suddenly taking care of and addressing all of these fundamental things that I'm speaking about without the upper brain and forebrain having to understand any of it. Because what you're doing is you're using the sensory motor cortices to create this distillation of patterns down to the cerebellum and the basal ganglion and the stuff that is, the lizard brain beneath it, so that you're patterning sort of you're directing your reflexive responses to be most appropriate to gravity and the ground. And that's your real competitor, is yourself. You're in between gravity and the ground. And the ideal scenario is where you are able to take this force, the 9.8 meters per second force, route it through your body to produce the most productive exchange. That's the delivery of force down, and then the capture and harnessing the force up to have the most graceful, fluid, economical capacity to do that. And when you can do that the best, well, now you have the foundation to do everything else. I mean, playing the violin, it will enhance everything, including your capacity to go right brain, left brain, and create harmonics deep in the brain that can lead to harmonics in the cognitive brain, where you can actually increase cognitive function. And then you start training the eyes, which have their own real estate in the brain, where it's like, oh my gosh, you can go very deep into this to you know, you can go as deep as you want to go because it's based in fundamental principles. And it really routes back to sort of a Taoist philosophy of yin and yang. These are the fundamental opposites. And if you can stretch out the polarity of the opposites, being maximum tension, minimal tension, and the wider that differential, the more space you have in between.
Great. That's great. I really admire that you focus, again, from my humble understandings, of course, because, you know, I'm not you, but you focus on the machine and the truth of our state. You know, we are on this earth and we have the gravity effect, we have our structure, the bones, the fascia, like you said. And I like that you said about the reflex. So I like that you bring it back to the basics, back to the reflex, back to the, like you said, the lizard brain, the cerebellum, the motor function, everything that's really, it's not very appreciated, I would say, David, in our society. I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think our society is too focused on the fixing, you know, the brain, the mindset and stuff. And I see myself, and I don't know if you've seen that from students or yourself, but I've seen that living with pain, living with physical pain, living with strains, muscle strains, with imbalanced body. So, for example, I did a DEXA scan a few years back, and my muscles were not as strong, so it wasn't balanced, and I had lordosis, not lordosis, kyphosis, or I don't know how it's the English term. And I was always here. It was strain, you know, every time I did exercise, bilateral movements. I was doing gym when I was doing, you know, machines when I was 21, 22, and I was finding that I couldn't progress very far. So it was limiting. Every time I was finding a wall, and it was usually the same things. My upper trapezius, right trapezius, my left knee. So it was like a structural problem, and I could see the patterns, but I couldn't figure out how to fix them. And with your ideas that I got from Timothy Schiff, credit to him too, and starting the rope training for, 14 months now, and I'm seeing really my body changing slowly. I'm 30. But finally, I seem to have found a way that slowly getting back to my body and balancing it out, making more structurally integrally structured.
Yep.
And that makes my psychology better because I have no pain anymore and I feel more free. I can run to catch the bus. I can run to go and talk to a girl that I saw on the other pavement. I can do things more easily. I don't fear to be strained that much anymore. And I really admire and appreciate that you are one of the few people, I think, in our fitness modern times that, you search about the fundamentals, the basic body stuff, I really admire it. Having said all that, can you say or indicate a few problems most people have with their fitness that you've seen from your own experience?
Well, I think that to sort of take it one step back again, you have body, mind, and spirit. And body is the physical education is the easiest to assess, then it's the most accountable because it deals with the reality. How many push-ups can you do is a very easy thing to measure and to be certain that you have measured accurately. Whereas the mind is much more nebulous and the spirit, who knows? So beginning with the physical education is really this anchor point for that mind and spirit. And the return is definite. So what I would say is that a lot of exercise stems from the aesthetic, because, you know, we have such a drive to be accepted by others, in particular, you know, potential sexual partners. These are innate drives that propagates the species. So again, back to instincts and reflexes, we want to appear attractive because the visual indicator is the very first thing that's going to pique any interest in the first place. So, and these are just baseline, you know, realities. So if the object is aesthetics, well, then it may or may not coincide with function. And then what I would say is that when the objective is function, if it's too mechanistic and focused on the individual parts and not the whole integration, you run the risk of not having full integration, and there becomes sort of a rigidity of thinking and practices where it's like, oh, I'm going to do this linear sort of thing. I'm going to brace my core and keep it braced, and then I'm going to try to shift my weight. And it's like, well, that's not how it works. It's much more fluid than that, right? The figure 8 is what keeps the movement going, as opposed to this blocky start and stop kind of stuff. That's, your body doesn't actually do that. And so if you train it to do that, well, now you're sort of working against what you're actually going to do, and you can actually be robbing yourself of functional capacity as you measure up in certain, you know, gym activities that you're getting better at. Whereas the better you get at that, not necessarily the better you get at what you're doing that to achieve. Right? So, and I think we're seeing a turn within the industry to better practices, just better practices, because ultimately the athletic truth emerges because of the competitive realities. And so people are essentially forced into adoption and adaptation to new practices once they've had enough time to achieve a critical mass where the evidence becomes overwhelming. You don't need a scientific study to prove that the Fosbury flop and high jump is the most superior technique you can do. And given the parameters of the event and given the structural reality of your body, well, there's not a better way to do it. So if you don't do it, you're not doing it the best you can do, and therefore you're not competitive. And again, back to this sort of competition, it's, you know, the drive to compete and win is extremely strong amongst those who are, you know, sort of, you know, that's their endeavor. I mean, it's, you know, it's the difference between a financial future that could be, you know, dream come true versus, oh, I got to go get a job. I mean, and me personally, I have a certain level of athleticism, but athletic inadequacy to do it, you know, professionally. I'm not at that. I'm not genetically capable of doing any athletic pursuit to a high enough level that anybody wants to pay to see it. So it's that inadequacy that provides a motivating factor for me that, oh, okay, I'm the little train that can never do it. So, okay, but how high up can I get? And the greater satisfaction of how much higher up can my information inform others to go? So it really is about the relationship with others and the sharing and the enhancement of the human experience. That's the legacy, and that's the truest, you know, reward, is that you've made the world a better, stronger, more balanced place to be.
I want to say that I share your feelings, because I too genetically am not charismatic, nor would I ever be an Olympian, to be honest. But it's fascinating when people that, you know, they don't give up and they try to maximize. And I've seen that people that are not genetically that gifted to be hyper strong, they usually try to find other ways to bring to the world more success. The genetically gifted or the natural ones, for example, if you are a male and you're natural ladies, you are not going to search to find, it's the same thing. I've seen the patterns in everything in life. you are not going to, find ways to maximize the gains, or how to approach a lady and be proper and not mess up. And the same holds true with fitness. I've seen friends, and my brother, honestly, he's gifted. He's very gifted, and you can see how easy he can put up muscle, how easy he can run, how natural it goes, it flows. And there are people that are really, probably they don't need even your teachings if they don't want to be professionals, if they are gifted. But if they want to be, I find your teachings really valuable. But having said that, before we go to the last segment of the interview, it's going to be your products. I want you to imagine a person. Let's say there's a young man or a young lady, and they are amateurs, so they're just starting out with fitness. Can you pitch them why they should focus on the fundamentals instead of going for the aesthetic first, instead of going for the simple machines of the gym, the basic stuff that everybody's doing, which is not that basic, if I might add. So can you say a few words about this?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the reality is when you understand how to orchestrate movement, now you can sort of funnel the aesthetic objectives into that container, this fluid integrated container, so you can get both. And I'm not saying that one is bad if you want to do it. So the motivating factor would be less pain, greater enjoyment of life. So, and then investing wisely in the time and effort that you're going to be exercising should be geared toward creating the fullest integration, and pursue the aesthetic and pursue the passionate intensity of exercise, whatever it is that you like to do. But by interweaving these sort of fundamental skill development, well, now you have the capacity to walk with more confidence, which is sexy. I mean, if you're blocky and you can't use your body, well, that you can't dance on the dance floor, So yeah, I would say that.
No, that was great. That was great. Yeah. Before we go to the last segment, I want to add more on that from my experience, because I was, an amateur back in the day. I consider myself a pro amateur, so I'm still very low in the fitness game. But I want to urge everybody that's really listening to us right now to really consider that what David said, because you will run circles with your life, and you cannot neglect the problems. The better you walk, it's true. The better you walk, the easier your movement is, the more confidence you will feel. It's not just that you will be perceived as confident. And I've seen that with many people. Many people are really, they walk with their hunchbacks. So like Quasimodo. And it's basically not just that they feel, but their structure is really fucked up. I hope that everybody's listening to go to David's website, which is going to be down below. And having said that, let's go to the last segment of this beautiful chat, and let us know basically of your products.
Yes.
Do a short, synopsis, and
Okay.
of the latest one about the feet and the propulsers, which are fascinating to me.
Yes. Okay. So the BOSU balance trainer is something that has a tremendous amount of utility, and some years ago, we really figured out how to use it as a strength training tool. And so fundamentally what it is it's elastic. So elastic has a rate of force that is greater than a non-elastic. So picture a slingshot, how it can defeat gravity much more. And if you direct the slingshot down, well, 100 pounds of force on the sling versus 100 pounds of force mass, the slingshot gets there faster. So there's an excitation of the nervous system at any given force. It's happening faster. It's almost like a current. And so you're stimulating the nervous system to deliver that 100 pounds faster, that excitation will give you the capacity to manipulate and move more mass, because you can send the signal faster. Okay, so, and the BOSU ball being a dome, we can strategically position your feet to get these different force vectors that go to the center line and through the legs, through the feet, where you're basically teaching the adductor muscle group, which is really the only muscle group that can both flex and extend at the hip. So the adductors, the group entirely will flex and extend. So by pressing in with flexed extension, you're harnessing both, and this excitation of being capable of flexing and extending the hips more powerfully, which is, that's a tremendous engine to build on. And then pressing, so if you're doing a push-up, as it were, you can press in, you're going to the center line. So it's that martial science again. You're not just pushing up linear, it's to the center. And the excitation of it, again, is faster. So that's become a staple element of the BOSU training. Now, the RMT Club is basically, the club is one of the oldest tools/weapons in our history. And so the manipulation of which is just good for the body. And with the RMT Club, there's a shifting weight inside of a relatively soft head that allows us to go extremely fast and change direction, where we have a moment where there's no load followed by a plyometric load, that if I'm swinging as fast as I can and I put on the brakes, boom, in a long position that's integrated, well, now a fraction of a second later, boom, it gets a hit, and that's that jolt, and the fascia learns how to set up and recoil so that you're able to develop this connective tissue recoil. And the audible feedback of this shifting weight also teaches us how to be fluid. We can make it silent. We can strategically chamber it, so it's where we're getting that down-up change, right? So we can use it in many different ways. That it's just, in some ways, it's probably the most useful club on the planet for educating your body to have this fluidity and power. The propulsors are just paradigm shifting. Make it your intent to go down, 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 and create this recoil back up, to run like Deion Sanders and to move like Randy Moss and these incredible athletes that are so incredible because they innately and naturally harness the connective tissue recoil rather than trying to push with the muscles. So they're just more powerful. They're on the ground less time, which is actually gentler on your body because you're using tendons and fascia that is fundamentally stronger than muscle. So, and then the muscle becomes this fluid medium about which force can flow globally with these pressure waves, as opposed to sort of this which creates more waste and leads to more strain. And you still train this so that it's more set up to be a fluid transmitter, but it's the propulsors literally, they teach and train you to be operate your body like the greatest athletes in the world who found it naturally, got the positive feedback, and kept on doing it. And then the soul steps are basically what I'll call the perfect pitch, sort of the combination of angles to create a slope that supports and uplifts human souls. So it's a complex angle. It's a combination of two specific angles that basically creates an X in terms of the weight shift in your body. So just standing still, what happens is from the big toe to the outside heel, the force direction is going backward as if to cock the spring into this dorsiflexion and prevent collapse to the inside. But from the inside heel to the outside ball of the foot, the force is going that way. So it's directing you to be here to load the outside ball of the foot, which through the fourth and fifth metatarsals connect to the heel bone. And the heel bone is being sprung by this, inside. And you get this distribution of force through the outside ball of the foot and inside ball of the foot with complete integrity. And it's not a crutch, it's an education. So your body learns to subtly shift its weight with just the right timing and just the right positioning to capture the power and integrity, skeletal integrity of the strong outside, and transition it to the long inside in a manner that doesn't collapse the inside. And we're talking about millimeters that matter tremendously. And it mirrors sort of a sweet spot on the dome of the BOSU ball that got my brain thinking about this complexity. And then it was a very esoteric, sort of like roundabout way that I invented the soul steps, where I took the fourth and fifth divisions of a circle and I combined those angles to create this thing. We stood on it. We said, oh my gosh, this is it. So it's like I've gone out into the outer reaches of the universe, lost my mind, psychotic episodes 4 times. So like I would say there's a divine inspiration that is coupled with sort of like a dance with the devil, as it were, to yield certain insight at great personal expense. So my knowledge, I have unique insights that are novel and useful for people. And the final thing I want to say is that the next product is your hands. So these are the tools that are always with you. And I'm just launching a hands course, fascially integrated strength training, where I teach you these positions and postures where you're learning how to use the bony architecture of the hands so that they can assist you in the capacity to move your entire body better. And you learn 8 hand positions with 5 movement and training techniques. And one of which I believe now is my greatest biomechanical discovery to date. And I am exploring this with a renewed passion that has never been so intense, because this one has literally upped my game to a level where it's like, oh my gosh, I would have never expected that I could have this level of confidence in my movement. This level of confidence where when I test it against myself, and I'm pretty fast and pretty good right now, and in a 10-yard sprint, I beat myself with this new technique by a body length and a half within 10 yards. What? And it's just technique. It's just technique. So I couldn't be more excited about, this hands course as being the thing that is really just information now. So it has the potential to spread. You don't have to wait for some product to be delivered. I mean, you just start using your hands as unique tools. And then if it changes behavior, meaning people benefit from it and then put it into practice, there will come a time where it's critical mass, where the entire world will be given the information that, oh, I have the option now to use the complete totality of my body fundamentally better, where I'm harnessing 25% of my skeleton to route the force more efficiently, conduct myself with greater harmony, efficiency, balance, strength, and power, and less pain, more joy. So that's the products in a nutshell. And then, of course, the rope. I've got a new invention, another version of the rope that will be coming out. I'm not sure exactly when, but it will be the next product that I launch, is a new rope that's really never been done.
Less pain, more joy. I'm waiting for the next rope, David, and I'm glad you came and here on. And Jesus, your enthusiasm is really I would say pandemic, but let's let's set that word aside. But you're really something. You're doing God's work, and I think God or the Creator or whatever is out there is speaking through you. And it seems to me that your imagination is coming naturally. Almost you download it and you just go and search things. That's how I feel you. I feel you like you are very intuitive as a creature. And
well, what I would say is that certain insights beget more advanced insights. So when you have a certain aha moment, that gives you the capacity to climb up mountain higher to see the next, whoa, I didn't know that it went there, but I wouldn't have known that had I not had the insight that leveled up the next insight that leveled up the next insight. So it's the relentless pursuit of better, never satisfied that you are going to stop at best, but how can we make it better?
You know, that's the best close for this chat. I'm pursuing of the better, not the best, always better, 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 always. So David, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing all this information with me and with the audience and all the Greeks that are listening to me. Down below, I will share your links. I urge everybody, but basically, to go check David's information. You have a channel. I think it's a Weck Method, right?
Yeah, we have Weck Method, and then the David Weck on Instagram is where I do, a bunch of sharing. The David Weck.
The David Weck, great.
Yep, and then I'm not sure exactly what's next, but with the hands, I'm going to be like, the hands are the final frontier in terms of like new information that is pure information in formation. Right? You can inform the architecture and manipulation, the manipulation of the hands. That, again, we're talking about next frontier. Where do you go next?
Crazy.
Well, what are we doing with the hands? Hands.
Oh man, I'm waiting to see what's coming from you. And having said that, thanks again for coming on. And
Thank you.
I hope to talk to you in a couple of years, and I hope that thousands will follow your path.
How about millions and then billions? Let's
Yeah, that's better. Yes. Yeah, true.